everyone, welcome to the program. This is Politics Today, live on Channels Television. I'm Sean Kimbale in Abuja. Tonight our attention is on a few issues bordering on the state of the nation, from how the linked looted asset to former Minister of Petroleum Resources, Diezani Madueke, is now being there's an agreement by the United States to return about $52 million to Nigeria. But they said 50 million of that will be used for rural electrification and 2 million to fight corruption and also for to enhance judiciary and corruption fight in Nigeria. So it looks like good news, but we know that we have so much money outside of this climate, out of this country, that could be returned by those who have looted us dry, who have taken and stolen the funds of this country outside of this nation, and hopefully some of them will return in in places like the United States, United Kingdom, and in Switzerland. But tonight our attention is on the implication of non-conviction-based forfeitures. What does this mean? And how can we go ahead after more of this? I'm getting an experienced person in prosecution of this similar case, but I'm also getting an experienced lawmaker to give us an insight in what is happening in the northern region of the country. You heard and said, so what happened in the defense of the 2025 budget by Tinubu's men and the National Assembly? Today was the turn of the INEC chairman, who is asking about 3 times more money than usual for INEC. He said the amount to prosecute election in Nigeria is burdensome and also expensive. We'll be hearing more on all of these issues. Stick around with me, everyone, because we need to serve you with some of your political roundup stories.
President Bola Tinubu is scheduled to depart Abuja tomorrow to participate in the 2025 edition of the Abu Dhabi Sustainability Week, according to a statement by the Special Advisor on Information and Strategy, Mr. Bayo Nanuga. The President of the United Arab Emirates, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, invited President Tinubu to attend the summit, which will take place from January the 12th to January the 18th. The Court of Appeal in Abuja has barred the Federal High Court in Kano from adjudicating over the Kano Emirates legal battle. The appellate court held that the court has no jurisdiction to dabble into the Kano State chieftaincy matters on the grounds that such a case can only be determined by the Kano High Court. Justice Gabriel Kolawole, who delivered the lead judgment, held that the Federal High Court has no business adjudicating over the chieftaincy matters, but ordered that the matter be returned to Kano State High Court, being the proper court for such matters. Governor Abdullahi Sule of Nasarawa State has dismissed insinuations suggesting that northern governors are fighting President Bola Tinubu over the tax reform bills. He stated this when he hosted the state leadership of the Christian Association of Nigeria at the government house in Lafayette, the state capital.
I don't want you to misunderstand the issue. For some people who are making noise, you are fighting the president. Nobody is fighting the president. Nobody. How can you fight a president that has made you look good? You know, this is the truth. So all we are saying is that some aspect of it, we need to look into it.
Senator John Azuta Mbata has been elected as the President General of the Ohanaeze Ndigbo worldwide. Senator Azuta Mbata, a former senator who represented Rivers East at the National Assembly, was elected at the stakeholders meeting of the Igbo Socio-Cultural Organization at the Old Government Lodge, Enugu, the Enugu state capital. The ceremony was attended by the governors of Enugu, Imo, Anambra, Abia, and the Deputy Governor of Ebonyi State, along with prominent leaders in the region.
Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us. And that is it. You've been served with your political roundup stories. Now, before we forget, let's not forget today. And now, let's forget. Federalism demands creativity and independence. Lest we forget, Nigeria is a federal republic, not a unitary state. Federalism thrives on the principles of autonomy, competition, and accountability among its federating units, ensuring that states function as centers of innovation and development. Yet in practice, Nigeria's states have become financially dependent on monthly federal allocations, which constitutes an average of about 85% of the revenues to the state, according to data from the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics. This fiscal dependency stifles creativity, it breeds inefficiency, and fuels a culture of entitlement. Contrast these with the United States, for example, where states like California and Texas independently generate revenues exceeding $1 trillion annually by leveraging their unique resources and fostering business-friendly environments. Similarly, in India, Tamil Nadu thrives as a manufacturing hub, while Gujarat capitalizes on its ports and renewable energy investment. Lest we forget, federalism is not about sharing oil rent. It is about creating wealth and opportunities at every corner of the nation. Lest we forget that the power to chart a new course lies within the grasp of Nigeria's governors. The untapped potentials of the agriculture, tourism, renewable energy, and technology sectors in so many states are staggering. With over 34 solid mineral types scattered across the Federation and Nigeria's ranking as one of Africa's biggest economies, there is no excuse for states to remain stagnant and bankrupt, bereft of ideas. Governors must embrace innovative governance models that prioritize human capital development, public-private partnerships, and local resource optimization. Lest we forget, a federation thrives when its constituent units are strong, competitive, and self-reliant, and the prosperity of Nigeria lies in the hands of visionary leaders who dare to think beyond federal allocations to build wealth that improves lives. Lest we forget. We keep reminding you of those things that matter for the benefit of our nation. So tonight, let's begin with what is some kind of cherry news, especially as the implication of the monies that will be collected will be used for the advancement of rural electrification and the benefit of Nigerian people. So today there's an agreement between the United States and the federal government in receiving about 52.88 million US dollars as recovered assets from Diezani Nigeria's former petroleum minister under the administration of former President Goodluck Jonathan. Today, at an agreement signing, the Attorney General of the Federation, Mr. Lateef Fagbemi, and the Minister of Justice confirmed at the formal signing of the asset agreement between the United States and Nigeria. The Attorney General of the Federation says that the 50 million naira of the recovered asset would be deployed through the World Bank to develop rural electrification projects, while the remaining $2 million US dollars will be used by the International Institute of Justice to expand the justice system and combat corruption. Take a listen to him.
The asset return agreement being executed today also ensures that the return assets are applied directly to developmental projects. As agreed, the $50 million US dollar of the repatriated funds will be utilized through the World Bank to partly fund the rural electrification project to increase the reliability and availability of renewable energy in Nigeria. While the balance of $2.88 will be disbursed as a grant by Nigeria to the International Institute for Justice, IIJ, to support the rule of law and counter-terrorism projects through counter-terrorism capacity building for criminal justice sector practitioners in the East, West, and North Africa.
All right, the Ministry of Justice and the Attorney General of the Federation. What does this mean for Nigeria? On this kind of situation, I try as much as possible to bring home the conversation. What does this mean? it's not just all about the signing and all of that, the ceremony. What does this mean for the average person, for Nigeria, and for the future? Try tonight to bring a very senior lawyer and someone who has prosecuted matters like this to give us an understanding of what this means. I have joining me tonight, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Mr. Wahab Shitu, who is live for us from our Lagos studio. It's good to have you tonight on the program, Mr. Shitu. I know you've prosecuted on behalf of the federal government for the EFCC on this kind of matter as a prosecutor, a lawyer who tried to dig down on issues of corruption in this nature. And this is a non-conviction based forfeiture, isn't it? What does this mean for Nigeria?
I think we must commend the United States of America, the US government, and we must also salute the Tinubu administration, particularly the efforts being made by the current Attorney General, Mr. Latif, I praise Latif Fagbemi, in ensuring that this happens. It is a major boost for the anti-corruption war being spearheaded by the EFCC and the ICPC. We now know that criminals who take advantage of our collective commonwealth can no longer hide. And what the significance of this is the effective use of asset forfeiture tool to combat corruption. The idea is that when you are seen involving or engaging in corrupt practices, you are deprived of the proceeds of the crime. The idea is to strip you naked so that the crime, the incentive for committing the crime in the first place is taken away. Because the reason why criminals perpetrate crimes is to be able to have access to illicit assets and illicit wealth. So the idea of the asset recovery and the consequent repatriation of such assets is that these criminals are prevented from having access to this loot. And in Nigeria, for instance, by virtue of being a signatory to the United Nations Convention Against Corruption, as well as the Commonwealth Expert Group, the 2005 agreement, Nigeria is signing with the international community to be able to take advantage of recovery of assets that are unlawfully taken away from Nigeria. In this specific case, we can identify two types of asset forfeiture. The first one is criminal forfeiture. One, when a defendant is taken through the trial process and eventually convicted, the proceeds of the crime is forfeited to the government. That is criminal forfeiture. The other route of a forfeiture regime is the one that is described as non-conviction based forfeiture regime, in which case the defendant is never tried. The focus of the recovery is on the assets that is looted. So the defendant either maybe is dead or has taken flight or is unavailable, is not tried, but the state is interested in the recovery of the ill-gotten wealth arising from the crime through the mechanism of civil forfeiture. And this is what has played out here. It is not on record that Diezani has been tried, but the asset has been recovered from him. And now what you see play out today in the formal signing by the Attorney General is an asset agreement between the US and Nigeria. The US has recovered this asset and they have agreed to also repatriate these assets back to Nigeria. And significantly, the way these assets are to be applied, the details of this, the application of these assets are contained in the agreement. One, to fund, through the World Bank, to fund the rural electrification project. This is going to be of beneficial impact to Nigeria, given the kind of challenge we have, power supply. And secondly, to enhance the quality of justice delivery and combat corruption, as well as also sustain the counter-terrorism measures and the rule of law in the country. These are key areas that are of beneficial impact.
Let me jump in quickly.
Yes.
Yeah. So justice, you would say, is served on one hand because the person in question has not been able to answer to some of these charges because since 2015, the former minister Alison Madueke has been in the United Kingdom. And I remember that Abdulrashid Bawa, the former EFCC chairman, has said they've recovered up to 150 million US dollars from loot related or linked to Diezani Alison Madueke. In fact, that they've also recovered properties worth about 80 million US dollars linked to Alison Madueke. Apart from other issues relating to bribery case in INEC and a few other issues related to millions of US dollars. And now, one would say justice sat on in one hand that some of these looted monies are coming back home.
Yes.
These monies are supposed to be meant for the Nigerian people,
yes,
are coming back to serve the Nigerian people.
Yes.
But the question here is that what could be the hindrance or the encumbrance, legally speaking, in terms of jurisdiction that is not allowing Nigeria to prosecute the said former minister adequately?
Well, you know, the extradition procedures of getting somebody who has taken flight from a country to another country involves some, legal, compliance procedures that must be satisfied before somebody can be brought or extradited from another country to Nigeria. There are judicial procedures. There are also some administrative and international procedures that must be complied with. I think efforts are being made by successive Nigerian government, particularly this administration, to ensure that those who have fled the country, particularly Diezani, are extradited back to the country to face their trial. There are two ways, and that difficulty is because you have legal and extra-legal hurdles to surmount if this is to be achieved. I think ongoing efforts are being made. I think what has played out today is also a major plus for the work of the anti-corruption bodies in our country. You can see from this recovery that EFCC is working, ICPC is working, the anti-corruption bodies are justifying their mandate, because this would not have been possible if we don't have international cooperation, if we don't have deployment of technical and other assistance, as well as bilateral and multilateral treaties in place before this result that you see play out today is achieved. There must have been a lot of exchange of information, a lot of deployment of technical assistance, a lot of international cooperation between elements in Nigeria and elements in the UK. What you saw today is the culmination of those efforts. And it also shows that Nigeria is collaborating effectively with international countries to combat corruption in our country. And the US is also cooperating because this recovery was facilitated by the US. The fact that US has facilitated this recovery ought to be commended. And secondly, for agreeing to repatriate these assets back to Nigeria is also another major plus. Fundamentally, it's also another.
If I may jump in quickly to ask you, yeah, right now, and we hear the U.S. ambassador to Nigeria saying at that forum that they would love to monitor so that the spending or the utilization of the funds that it should be used for the benefit of Nigerians. Agree that makes a lot of sense. But when we wonder, the money recovered is Nigeria's money. What is the logic behind the United States routing the money through the World Bank and telling us how to spend the money?
For the recovery was facilitated by the US government. And US government has deployed enormous resources in ensuring that this recovery is made. I think it is also in the strategic interest of US to ensure that the funds recovered is utilized. I mean, it's not relooted. You have had speculations in the past by certain of allegations of assets looted being relooted. I think US wants to make assurance doubly sure that the money that is looted is applied for the benefit of Nigerian people, and they are entitled to put in place safeguards because they are the one who facilitated the recovery. And what they have done, if you look at it realistically, the items for which the recovered funds are to be applied are generally of beneficial effects to the Nigerian people. Rural electrification through the World Bank. Disbursement to the World Bank for rural electrification will boost energy supply in our country, and that will translate to meaningful development. Without power, there's no way any meaningful development can be achieved. Secondly, the issue of enhancing the justice delivery system of our country is very critical to democracy, because there's no democracy that can be achieved without sustaining the element of justice or enhancing the quality of our justice delivery system. And again, we also know that we need to combat or counter corruption. Corruption is a major, militating effect against our developmental progress as a country. This country is highly endowed with human resource capacity. But part of the problem that we have been having successively for many years is this endemic corruption in our society. The elephant in the room is corruption. So if funds are earmarked to combat or counter corruption, it is something that is likely to also benefit the country. And lastly, the funds are also to be applied to counter terrorism and also ensure the sustenance of the rule of law. So those items, rule of law, countering of terrorism, which is something that can militate against development, combating corruption, and then enhancing steady energy supplies. Those are items that will be beneficial to the Nigerian people. So, and the US as a leading democratic country, that is one of the leading, with strong economies in Nigeria, ought to know areas of critical needs that will be of beneficial nature to the country. And it is not just US that is putting this agreement into paper. It's a culmination of consensus between Nigeria and US on these areas. They must have, I assume that there will have been a lot of discussions, negotiations before this agreement was signed. And Nigeria must have agreed to those items for which these looted funds will be applied. So I think if funds are recovered, there must be adequate mechanism for application of the funds. And that also requires a lot of monitoring, a lot of transparency, a lot of accountability. So this agreement has shown that the two countries have signed into this agreement. So the temptation to believe that these funds will be diverted is not there, either on the part of the Nigerian government or the US government. And then the certainty that these funds will be returned is also guaranteed. From the side of the US government. I think if we recover funds for the US government, we are also entitled to set the template for the application of the funds. So I think transparency and accountability.
I hope the US will not play big boy at that point to think that how would Nigeria determine for them, because there are those who, look, it's our money, we should be able to use it for what is best for our own people. But the question here is that we cannot rejoice it might be too early to rejoice, because I remember 4 years ago, Ibrahim Magu, the former AFCC chairman, had said that nothing less than 2.5 billion US dollars was stolen or looted or linked to Alison Madueke, Diezani Alison Madueke. We're just talking about 53 million US dollars. That's just a paltry sum in the amount that we're talking about. Past EFCC chairman have said they've recovered about 115 million US dollars and all that. There's still so much money to be recovered. And it does look to me that an easier way? Because we've been on these Diezani and loot linked to her for over 6-7 years now, since the loss of the election of the Goodluck Jonathan government. But the question is that how do we get much of these funds that are still hidden in foreign climes?
Thank you very much. I think we must accept the fact that there's a new sheriff in town now. The Attorney General of the Federation, Prince Lateef Fagbemi, you can see that he's committed and committed to this process. EFCC under Ola Oladipeku is also committed to this process, and ICPC is also playing a huge role. The kind of recoveries that have been made, particularly in recent times, is mind-boggling, which shows the commitment of the Tinubu administration to fight corruption. But it's not just the Tinubu administration or any administration for that matter that should be saddled with this responsibility. Stakeholders across the board also have a responsibility, including what the media is doing by sustaining this kind of enlightenment program. You are also getting everybody to be, to be on their toes, because except we deploy efforts locally and internationally to recover much of our stolen wealth within and outside the country, there's no way government will have access to funds to be able to drive development. So I think, if people steal our funds with reckless abandon and then take them to foreign shores, it's a minus against the government. This government is trying, for instance, toying with a lot of policy options. But there's no way the government can succeed without access to capital, without access to funds. And we all know that this government may have inherited a lot of debts, a lot of near empty treasury. So some of these recoveries will assist the government in driving the kind of change that it has promised Nigerians to deliver. And it is
not the question here is that, have we learned any lesson as a people? How can our country be looted dry to this extent that we all open our eyes and see billions of dollars, not naira, dollars, looted and taken to outside of the country?
Thank you. I think the solution is that our government, the anti-graft agencies, and all the stakeholders must ensure that there are consequences for criminal infractions. When you steal blind, they recover the funds and strip you naked and then send you to jail. Nobody should be above the law. Those who have stolen our country dry should be brought to book. Because when you steal from our collective commonwealth, what you are doing is to deprive our people of access to infrastructure development and democracy dividends. And so, whoever is stealing our country blue is actually a criminal that should be brought to book. And I think the efforts of the anti-graft agencies must be commended, and we all, as a people, must rise to the occasion to ensure that we see something, say something, and also do something, which is the slogan the EFCC has been preaching for a number of years.
Mr. Wahab Shitu, very senior lawyer, senior advocate of Nigeria, and one man that has questioned and queried in the courtroom on behalf of the federal government prosecuting corruption cases. He's perhaps one of the most senior ones that have done that for Nigeria. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Indeed,
except to add that I'm not Dr. Wahab Shitu
on this matter.
I'm not Dr. Wahab Shitu.
Very apologies, Dr. Wahab Shitu. Yes. Apologies.
Yes.
Last time I will address you as Mr. Dr. Wahab Shitu. Thank you so much indeed. I appreciate it.
It's my pleasure.
Let's get some more insight. I'm being joined by Senator Abubakar Yusuf, a former federal lawmaker, is live for us here in the studio. Let me get your view on these looted funds. I mean, how crazy does it sound to you that this amount of money is being stolen by those who are giving the burden and the trust to administer governance in our country?
Well, thank you very much. First of all, let me commend Mr. President and also the Attorney General going so far. However, right from 2003, when EFCC Act was made, a lot of us have spoken about it. Go for protection. Go for prevention. Give priority to prevention.
So that people cannot have the capacity.
So that people cannot have the capacity to loot money. But somehow, it wasn't understood that way by the people who operated the EFCC. They went for prosecution and recovery. That is why up till now, nothing much has been out of the $2.5 billion or so. It's only 52 million from that of Diezani Madueke. So for me, up till now, the attention has not been focused on prevention. And so long as we are not attacking prevention, there is no way we'll continue to spend money on recoveries.
So is it possible that we could still have, after the 2015 Alison, the Abacha loot, the Alison Madueke linked loot, we still could have had people loot as this much in the last 8 years or so?
Certainly, if they had gone for prevention, nothing much of this loot that would have gone out of this country. Because prevention is the key. There is no looting in this country which has not gone through the banking system. Nothing, no loot in this country that has not gone through the banking system.
Under the radar.
Of course, so even the banks are culpable. But the government refused to focus its attention to the banking system. Is there any looting that has not gone through the banking system? Whether it is, local bank or foreign bank, there is none. So why are they not, looking on that side? They first of all look at that side of banking system. How did the money leak out? How did it go out of this country? How? By flying, carrying the dollars in briefcase and going out of the country with it? If that's the case, how did the dollar come in? How did the dollar go out? So, if we are really, really serious in this country and we want to fight, corruption, we should go for prevention. And then those that are already, there are so many in this country. They are in this country. EFCC, have their own cases. They have brought their cases and put them, under some kind of, wardrobe or something like that. They are not, for me, while America, yes, we commend them. But what are we doing with those within the country? How much have we covered? How much of them have been tried? How much of them have been sentenced? How many of them?
A question I asked Dr. Wahab Shitu is the modality, the template where the United States is telling us how the funds will be disbursed and utilized. So in this sense, if you are asking the World Bank to help us to spend the money, to tell us how to spend the money, I'm very sure that part of the money will be used as fees, consultancy fees, and all whatnot, don't you think?
My brother, they don't even know that this money is a federation money. It is not federal government money. So first of all, it will go to federation account.
That's how it should go.
That's how it should be, because NMPC is a federation entity. This money belongs to local government, to state government, and to federal government. So for World Bank, for United States of America to say it should go through the World Bank and then, come to spend on rural electrification, is it the most important? Today we are crying of insecurity in this country, much more than not having electricity in our rural areas. Why will the money go through the bank and then go to rural electricity? There is something, as suspicious. Even United States of America is suspicious of the federal government of Nigeria, how we manage our resources. In the first place, it is ours. It's been recovered. So why should it go through the World Bank? To do what? To pay some consultants? Or to do what?
The 100% of that money definitely will not go into the project.
Certainly.
Because there are not only computers are working in the World Bank or trees or chairs. There are people who are working, their fees are going to be, salaries are going to be paid, and probably, consultancy fees, like you mentioned.
Yes, like I said, so long as they fail to understand this is federation money, it should not, even if it goes through the World Bank, it will go directly to the federation account.
This is not the first time, Senator, if you remember, that when monies are repatriated to Nigeria, those countries tell Nigeria how to use the money. This is not the first time it's happening. And the question is that, I mean, are we being looked down upon, or what? Is it a trust issue? Where the United States is returning our own money and telling us, oh, this is how you're going to spend the money.
You see, that is the way they see Nigerians, as the way they see Nigerian government. We do not trust you. We do not, even though it's your money, we should help you how to manage it. That is rubbish for me. You can't collect my money. Yes, we appreciate they have collected the money to repatriate it, and you said that it has to go at certain processes. I mean, certain ways of doing it. If you don't trust this government, tell this government that we do not trust you. We don't trust Nigerians. But for you to go through the back door and say, well, we have to repatriate this money, we do not trust the way you will spend the money, we have to manage the money the way it should be managed, for me is not right. It's not fair to Nigeria. It's not even, you know, a credible assessment of the government of Bola Ahmed Tinubu. I think the government should resist that. You should not continue to dictate how we will spend our own money. You have recovered this, thank you. If you say you have spent some money to recover, then tell us how much you have spent. Then you deduct it from the money, and the balance you repatriate to federation account, so that, you know, it will be beneficial to federal government, state government, and the local government.
Let's take a breather, Senator. We'll go on a break, and when we come back, we shall be talking about the situation in the northern region of the country. There seems to be a lot of shelling, a lot of gunshots, and a lot of killings going on. And it seems to be 10 days of a lot of activities. It's become a full-blown theater of war. But how do we win this war? We'll be getting more insight. Plus, attention also on the defense going on about the 2024-5 budget at the National Assembly. INEC turn was today. Yesterday was out of the Ministry of Finance and some other allied ministries under the economic team. We'll be right back, everyone. Join us again. Thanks so much, everyone, for staying with us. And so our quiz for today, and we're asking, well, a question that I thought that a lot of people might easily get to answer, and I get to I'll try to find out some of you who are the fastest fingers. So the question today: the annulment of the June 12, 1993 presidential election by General Ibrahim Babangida led to the emergence of which key movement? Is it NADECO, or SAP, or SURE-P, or PRP? What is your answer? If you know Nigeria's politics so well and Nigeria's political history, get your answer in the fastest fingers. How we're noticing them, don't worry, it won't go without some kind of appreciation. Well, let's get to our conversation with Senator Abubakar Yusuf, a former member of the Senate. Senator, today we saw INEC chairman and his team going for the budget defense, just like we've been saying. All of our ministries and parastatals and MDAs also doing that. Yesterday we saw the Ministry of Finance defending the 2025 budget and the performance of the 2024 budget. But I'd like everyone to listen to what the INEC chairman said. He's worried about how much it takes and the effort in conducting elections in Nigeria. And one of those things he said is that they need more money because there are problems with infrastructure of INEC across the country. Take a listen to the INEC chairman, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu.
When we talk about the by-elections and end of tenure elections to be prepared for this year, that will also include the conduct of party primaries by political parties. If a political party is conducting direct primaries starting at ward level, we have to deploy our officials to each one of the 8,809 wards. But again, this is part of the problem and is adding to the cost. When you deploy staff, you pay their DTA. And sometimes when they are deployed to a particular state, the party will now write to say, we are sorry, we are postponing it until next week. It means we have to demobilize the staff and remobilize them. And the budget doesn't provide for demobilization and remobilization endlessly. So there are so many issues to consider. 2025 is a critical year in our preparations for the 2027 general elections. So this amount in the envelope that we are given is inadequate for those activities.
You heard the INEC chairman there. So, Senator, what do you make of his submission?
Well, you see, first of all, INEC is soft on how it manages the political parties. That is, why do I say so? If he's talking about, primaries, again, the parties, will postpone the primaries, they are not managing the primaries for the political parties. They are allowing the political parties to manage the primaries, for INEC. So the more you look at these things, the more, certainly, more money will be required. No doubt about it. However, like I have said in the past, and I will continue to say that, INEC must bear its own full responsibility of managing the political party under the act that it has been formed. I believe that INEC has so much powers to do and insist the political party must do what is right and what is fair to everybody. So long as INEC is lackadaisical on this issue, is not going to have, things right.
126 billion or so is what INEC is asking for 2025 operation. It's not a major election year. You think that is too expensive, or is it too much?
With full management, that amount is too much because it is not an election year. It is too much. How many, because he spoke about the primaries, of political parties. He talked about direct primaries and what have you. All these things, yes, is related to security, is related to other issues. For me, 125 billion on off election year, I think that amount, is too much. I don't know much about it. I have no figures before me how they arrive at the 125 billion. But by looking at what has happened in the past, I don't think that amount is not going to be too much to be spent within this particular time. Although we know costs have changed, no doubt about it. Cost of fueling, cost of this, cost of that, new minimum wage and the rest. But I think, if we look at it critically, if they stamp their feet on managing the political parties, they do not need this much of money.
I think what INEC is driving at here, because listening and following up with what the presentation of the INEC chairman, in 2024, INEC presented 80 billion, but there were only 40 billion approved to them. They complained and they were promised that they will get more, but they couldn't get more. INEC is saying they want to start preparation for 2027. Maybe what INEC was doing there was to say, let's go for 120. Since we asked for 80 billion, you give us 40 billion.
Yeah.
Let's ask for a higher figure. Let's see whether we come back. Because INEC is talking about ITF, pensions, gratuities, infrastructure dilapidation across the country, and the preparation for 2027 election. And I'm worried, how are you preparing for a 2027 election in 2025? Yeah. 2 years before the election.
Exactly. So that's what I said. They are playing on the psychology of the government. They even talked about envelope. And I have always been questioning this issue of envelope. How on earth would you budget before you plan? What is the requirement of INEC that they are only be given an envelope? I have problem with this system of budgeting before planning. So long as you budget before you plan, then you'll have abuse of resources here and there. And maybe they are saying that maybe we need 50 billion. So let us put our request for 125 billion. Maybe we will get maybe 70 billion. So they are also playing on the psychology, knowing exactly how things are being done in this country in terms of budget presentation and budget manipulation.
So Alex says today, part of the statement that the INEC chairman is made there. He says that conducting election is exorbitant and cumbersome. Do you think there are better ways for us to do this?
That is why I said there are better ways if they manage the political parties. INEC is not managing
other political parties the problem.
Well, the political parties, if they don't manage them well...
Or you, the politicians, you are the problem.
No. You see, if the party is really serious and is standing on its feet and trying to do what is right, I'm telling you, INEC will spend less money because the INEC is not monitoring the political parties, because INEC should also monitor the politicians. They have, because the names of the politicians, are sent to INEC. Whatever name is sent to them, they don't even, care, so long as it comes from political party, whether whether the primaries was done credibly or not, so long as a political party has presented a candidate, then it's open to a lot of litigation. So that is why I say, INEC must stand on its feet and make sure the primaries, what the political parties are presenting, to INEC, are subject to less litigation.
Let me take you to what is happening in the northern region of the country. Are you worried about the recent attacks, the waves of attack? A lot is being done by the military, by the way. We saw what the president said in respect of the troops and the members of the military that were killed by these terrorists. And we saw what is happening in Katsina, in Zamfara, in parts of Borno State. And we're seeing a rise. In 10 days now, we're seeing the kind of activities that perhaps we've not seen in a while in the northern region of the country. Why do you think that early in the year, first 10 days of the new year, we're seeing this kind of activities?
Well, first of all, my sympathy goes to the families of the people who lost, their loved ones. However, like I've always said, when you have ill-equipped security, ill-financed outfits of security, no much intelligence, at the same time ill-motivated, everything is poorly done. In the sense that I sympathize with President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. You can provide all the monies you can provide, so long as these people are not trained for that particular purpose, And then, even the funding. The other day I was listening to the Chief of Defense Staff, where he said that, even the purchase of the kinetics, is being frustrated outside this country. So, I mean, what are we trying to do in this sense? So the most important thing is, first of all, redress the issue of motivation. Redress the issue of, financing the outfits. Redress the issue of getting them, functional equipment to work with. And then, using the locals, because nothing is happening without the locals knowing. So if the locals do not have trust and confidence in our armed forces, they will not go anywhere. And this is the beginning of the year. Last year, at least for some few months, 6 months, it has been a little bit, subsided, especially in the northeast. Yesterday or the day before yesterday, I learned that the ISWAP and the Boko Haram wants to take over, the government house of Chad. Even Chad, that drove these people back to Nigeria, are having this issue, much more of Nigeria. So I think, we should look at it from the point of view of, increasing the military, increasing their number, better training for them, better motivation, better intelligence, and also the involvement of the locals.
If you look at, of course, the Senate Committee on the Army was commiserating and mourning the soldiers, commiserating with the military and the nation on the killing of some soldiers in Damboa local government of Borno State, which happened on the 4th of January. And there was a statement by Senator Abdulaziz Musa Yaradua, who is the chair of the Senate Committee on the Army. And you look at what is going on in those parts of the country, some of the attacks in some of the communities in Dambuwa, in Borno State. In fact, the military is saying about, in the last few days, about 115 or so of these terrorists have been killed, and a lot of them more have been arrested. And today we saw the military on the ground on the Operation Flush Out Lakurawa, and they are on their case in chasing them and flushing them out. As the activities are growing, we see also the activities of these elements, in and around the country. But the question is that, do you think that if we have had a better coordinated approach, the air attack or the air approach by the Nigerian Air Force and the ground support by the Nigerian Army, do you think we probably would have gotten better result? Or do you suppose that maybe there is not much of a synergy within the military?
Well, certainly, better coordination will give better results. Is it 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago when they bombed, and killed innocent souls, looking for Lakurawas? So there was no communication, as to find out, even from intelligence point of view, who are these people? Where are they? So they just go there, bomb and then come back. Where are the combatants on the ground? Where are they? Where are the combatants? No, that is we are talking about, motivation. We are talking about, equipment, availability of those, whether, the minimum things we have. Why don't we hear about these things in Niger? Why don't we hear about these things much in Chad, in Cameroon, in Mali? Why are we not hearing about these things? Why is it only Nigeria? What is it? What is it that lack of coordination, lack of intelligence?
I was happy, Senator, when the Minister of Interior on this program talked about the monitoring of our borders, because that's a major problem. When these guys come in and out of our borders, the very much vast unmanned borders in Nigeria, several kilometers of them that we cannot control, the coming in and out of these terror groups and interests. And the question is, when I heard that we're going to have a better monitoring and we can in Abuja see all of this, I was happy. And also was a bit excited when I saw that there was an increase in the budget of defense, way more than we have ever seen in the history of this country. It gave me joy. And I'm hoping that this year, the monies will be properly utilized. Because that's very important. And the border control will be better done digitally, so that we can move when some of these elements move in and out. But what are your expectations based on some of these indices?
My expectation, if this thing we want these things to happen, is first of all, what is the composition of the budget? Is the budget going for increase in employment, of the armed forces, increase in training, increase in intelligence, increase in kinetics, and what have you? Until if the money is just for humanitarian aspects. When I say humanitarian, spend the money anyhow without proper determination for the purpose for which these monies are meant for, then certainly my expectation will not be met.
And I'm hoping that those places that have been liberated will not again, because Dambuwa and the rest, there's been a lot of quiet in terms of terror attacks. And we're seeing some of these attacks yet again. We thought that maybe for a longer and a more permanent reasons, some of these elements have been silenced, but now we're hearing them again.
Well, my take on this, my thinking is that, there's movement of troops from one section of the country to another section. So now these people, monitor too. They realize that troops are now moved from the northeast probably to northwest, and therefore there is now laxity in terms of number of people. So as long as we do not have much number of armed forces, then we will continue to be running around with ISWAP and Boko Haram. They are well connected, well coordinated, well funded. Because the chief of defense staff said, he says so much about this thing, in the last interview that he had with Al Jazeera. So I think we have to look at, increase in volume of the number of our troops.
Yeah.
How many of them do we have? And then, we train them. We train them in that aspect that we have, not concentrating, okay, we are training our armed forces, for war. Insurgency is different from war. So I think, these are the areas that I think we should look into, in the coming months.
Senator Abubakar Yusuf, a former federal lawmaker, represented Taraba State in the Senate, and he wanted to be Taraba governor, but of course that didn't happen. Maybe it will happen in the nearest future. But thank you so much, Senator, for joining us.
You always say this. I'm an old man now.
You never get, if your mind is still sound and your head is still working properly, I mean, no one can.
Maybe I allow the younger ones to also battle it out for us to sit down and watch.
I always like to remind you, so that you don't give up.
So when the time comes, I will let you know whether I'll throw in the towel or,
thank God that the towel is still in your pocket, so you know where to throw it. Yes. Well, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure having you. Thank you so much, Senator. I appreciate it. But those who are asking, what exactly, and I've seen a lot of wrong answers here to the question that we are asking tonight. But yes, quickly, let me go to it. The annulment of the June 12, 1993 presidential election by General Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida led to the emergence of key movement. Of which key movement? Nadeko, SAP, SURE-P, PLP. Well, the answer is not SURE-P. A lot of you have said SURE-P, and it's not SAP. It's Nadeko. Thank you so much, everyone. I'm noticing those of you. Well, so, don't worry. We'll get back to you on some of what we excite you about some of these answers. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you on Sunday, God willing. God bless Nigeria.